Yo, what's up guys, it's Relik. Welcome to WAVNINJA, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make 808s that hit really hard in your tracks, because I know I had issues in the beginning just getting shit to slap, to be honest. Before I go too deep in though, I'm going to go over a few things. One of the things is that a lot of the producers out there already kind of know the general basics of making an 808 or using an 808, but they're still not happy with the sound that they're getting. And to that I say there's two things you need to take into account. One being sample selection, and the other being the mix. So you can't sacrifice either of these. Sample selection especially, because if you have good source material, you don't even really need to process it at all. A lot of times in my videos, I just use the default 808 just because I chose a good one in the beginning. And it makes it easy to be able to streamline your ideas a lot quicker if you're not focusing on like distorting your 808. And you know, like all these like extra things that like take you away from the creative side of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, so once you have good sound selection, it basically just comes down to just getting a good mix. And a lot of a good mix just comes down to just getting your levels right. Sometimes you want your kick to dominate as opposed to your sub, and vice versa. Sometimes you want something really boomy and then have like a really like thumpy kick. And a lot of times you just need to give everything room to breathe. Like, once you can get all your levels right, it makes it so easy to smash your master and limit it really hard without getting all those like really gross artifacts and like having it crackle and stuff. I can just push my tracks really hard just because of my mixing. So yeah, with all that being said, let's get into the good shit. There are three main elements to an 808. The first one being the pitch envelope, or the initial thump. It's kind of like how a kick is, where it starts at a high frequency and it goes down to a low frequency really fast. Oftentimes people will actually replace that initial transient for a real kick. That way they get basically a heavier thump at the beginning. And then they'll obviously bounce it out with the 808 in the end. The next one is the sub-frequency content, which I'm sure everybody knows for the 808, because it's the sub, it's the low end. It's where you feel everything is below like 90 hertz, I would say. And then there's the low mid frequency, which is basically like 90 to, I want to say like 400 to 600 hertz. Sometimes 808s can even go higher than that though, depending on the style that you're going for. This can be achieved in a lot of different ways. You can be adding harmonics. It could be the wavetable that you started with in the beginning. It could also be, you know, distortion, saturation. People use bit crushing. That's another big thing. And also, people will also widen the lower mid-range instead of widening the whole 808. So that way, everything below 90 is still intact and like sounds good in mono, but you can also have a very wide stereo field for an 808. Another thing to take note of is the kick that you use in the track, because it changes the characteristic of the 808 kind of, because it's the initial transient. So if you have a really hard-hitting kick in the beginning, it's gonna make it seem like the 808 hits harder, as opposed to if you have a really soft kick in the beginning with a nice 808. So make sure you choose a good kick, because that is very, very important. And the last element I want to bring up is portamento, or also known as glide or slide. It's not used in every track, but it's a very stylistic choice. People like Wonder Girl use it, and Eastbound, and a lot of those like heavy hitters. Personally, I love using them. It's just a good thing to know, and it varies depending on which DAW you're using, so just be sure to YouTube portamento or glide if you're interested in finding out how to do that. And obviously the speed of the glide is going to vary depending on the track that you're working on. So we're in Ableton now, and I have a fresh project open, only with Serum right now, because we're going to be synthesizing a 808, and I'll be showing you how to process and go about different ways of manipulating the 808 basically, and also making the 808 itself. And all of these tricks can be applied to samples as well. So you can also use samples and then further distort them and like manipulate them to your liking. But yeah, so we have just the init patch right now, which is just a saw wave. And I would turn it down, but we're going to be switching to a sine wave. There's a whole bunch of different sine waves that you can use. You can even draw in your own harmonics right here. That doesn't sound very good, but there is one, what is it called, like a little preset called fat sub. Where's it at? Right here. And it has a good amount of harmonics without making it sound weird. There's this click at the beginning because the attack is too fast. Alright, so getting into it, I'm going to make a transient, which is the very initial punch. I'm going to be putting the LFO all the way over and then going on envelope. And then you might have to change the rate, but then you'll put this on course. And then hit Alt Shift and click. And you can hear it's got that initial punch. And then you can go into the matrix and mess with it. So if you want to get it really weird sounding, I don't know why you would do that. But you can do it. And then the next thing you want to do is either make the release and sustain and all that, or do what I do. You should do what I do. And use another LFO, because then it'll be in sync with the track that you're working on. So I just move this over, put it on level, envelope, and then you get to choose the shape that you want your 808. If you want it to drag out more, you can, or just be really short. But yeah, that's the general idea of it. Of course, you can add effects. There we go. It's good for now, and then I'm going to want to put it in mono, and then if you want to do the portamento and the glide, you can add it right here. But you'll want to hit legato, because let me just play actually. As you can hear, when I switch notes, it still has that transient, even though I'm doing a slide. So you'll want to hit legato. And that way it only plays the transient once until you let go of the notes again. So that's the general idea of just getting an 808. Of course, you can mess with it even more in here, compress it. I tend to do that sometimes, the high ratio. And then bring up the makeup gain. Perfect. Then I'm going to lay out a note. Alright, I'm not going to be too picky, but I'm going to add a kick transient like I was talking about, just to give you an idea of like what they do. So let's see. I'm going to go to, where's it at? Kick. How's that sound? It's alright, I guess. I'm going to do a little fade out. Sweet. So this is what, E note. I'm going to group this, make an audio track, and then resample it out. And this is how you can save your 808s. But you can also just save the whole chain if you're in Ableton. Sweet, so we have this now. It's alright, I guess. And then basically what we'll want to do is process it, so I can either do like more compression or distortion or bit crushing. So right now I'm just going to do saturation, which is basically like small distortion. Of course you can go crazy, but if you do a whole bunch of saturators in series, you tend to get a more rounder sound. That's usually how you get like the really round sounding ones, and I think personally it's awesome to do and I would love to show, but honestly it takes a little time to kind of get the right saturators and everything and the whole chain right. That's the one thing about making 808s, is that sometimes it can take a while to get and achieve the sound that you want sometimes. But as you can hear, I have that. And then I'm going to, I don't know, you can always add distortion like you usually do. But sometimes it'll mess with the low end too much. So what you'll want to do is group this and then open up the chain and create a new chain. So this one is the wet or the distorted. I'll just do distorted. And then we have the dry. And then you can also do this in Patcher on FL Studio if you're trying to follow along. So yeah, and then what you'll want to do is take this one, add an EQ, scoop out the low end, so that way it's not interfering with the dry signal. So we have this, and then we have this. And together, it makes that. But you can also adjust the level of this, and you can also further process this. Also, sometimes it might mess with the phasing, so you want to open up a utility and invert the phase. But this one in particular is fine. So next I'm going to try to do, what else? Let's see, maybe Bit Crusher. As you can hear, it gives very interesting artifacts. And then you can also, what is it? Low pass this too. If you have too much high end, sometimes it can get buzzy. But I'm going to take this off. And we'll do widening as well. You can do another utility. Actually, I'm going to use a side widener. It's a great widening plugin. But as you can hear, it sounds fine. It's really wide, but if I collapse it to mono, it still sounds fine. So that's how you do widening, but are still able to achieve a good low end without having any phasing issues. But yeah, those are the general ideas. Obviously, you're going to want to mess with different plugins like Saturn. Trash 2 is great. The Fruity FL Fast Distortion, that's good. The Blood Overdrive is really good. And then Decimort, of course. Decimort, you want to do it in series, though, and have small amounts, or else it just gets too intimidating. That's the thing with distortion, is it's very sensitive. So you have to like be very particular about how you make your 808s and take some time. So this is something that you would want to do not while producing usually. And then you'll want to bounce them out and write the key. So that way you can go back to it later and use it as a sample, and it just like works so well. Honestly, like I actually use some of my own 808s a lot of the time. But yeah, this is pretty much it for the video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate everything. If you like, subscribe. I'm sorry if I rambled on too much. I'm still getting used to all this. I'm pretty new to the whole videos thing, but yeah, thanks.